Okay.
And we're live. Hi everyone, welcome to Think and Grow Rich Daily Hangout. This is Sandy Lebeck, your host in Lisbon, Portugal. A very stormy, rainy day. And Glenn Walker. Hi Glenn, out in Tennessee. So today we're reading about fear. Yesterday we read about how there are 6 main types of fear. Napoleon calls them the ghosts of fear. So you can actually start to become more aware of them. And also what he's saying is realize that they might seem powerful, but they actually, you're more powerful than fear. You know, I think that's why he calls them the ghosts of fear, because they seem like these really powerful emotions or feelings that take hold of us, that we just can't do anything about them, but actually we can. So we're just reading up to the fear of poverty. So so who should read, Glenn? I don't mind.
Would you like me to read? Okay, sure.
Okay, cool.
I can do it, sure.
Okay, thank you. And he was saying yesterday that most people would say, I don't fear anything, you know, if they were asked about fear. And he's saying that's not actually true. A lot of people do have fears. In fact, they're run by a lot of fears. They just don't always consciously know it. So this is a really good chapter to start to become more consciously aware of that.
So here we're going to start. The last sentence we had read was, here is a list of the symptoms for which you should look. So now you're going to look for symptoms, right? Symptoms of the fear of poverty.
Cool.
Indifference, commonly expressed through lack of ambition, willingness to tolerate poverty, acceptance of whatever compensation life may offer without protest, mental and physical laziness, lack of initiative, imagination, enthusiasm, and self-control. Indecision, the habit of permitting others to do one's thinking, staying on the fence. Doubt, generally expressed through alibis and excuses designed to cover up, explain away, or apologize for one's failures, sometimes expressed in the form of envy of those who are successful or by criticizing them. Worry, usually expressed by finding fault with others, a tendency to spend beyond one's income, neglect of personal appearance, scowling and frowning, intemperance in the use of alcoholic drink, sometimes through the use of narcotics, nervousness, lack of poise, self-consciousness, and lack of self-reliance. Overcaution, the habit of looking for the negative side of every circumstance, thinking and talking of possible failure instead of concentrating upon the means of succeeding. Knowing all the roads to disaster, but never searching for the plans to avoid failure, waiting for the right time to begin putting ideas and plans into action until the waiting becomes a permanent habit. Remembering those who have failed and forgetting those who have succeeded. Seeing the hole in the donut, but overlooking the donut. Pessimism, leading to indigestion, poor elimination, auto-intoxication, bad breath, and bad disposition. Procrastination, the habit of putting off until tomorrow that which should have been done last year, spending enough time in creating alibis and excuses to have done the job. This symptom is closely related to overcaution, doubt, and worry. Refusal to accept responsibility when it can be avoided. Willingness to compromise rather than put up a stiff fight. Compromising with difficulties instead of harnessing and using them as stepping stones to advancement. Bargaining with life for a penny instead of demanding prosperity, opulence, riches, contentment, and happiness. Planning what to do if and when overtaken by failure instead of burning all bridges and making a retreat impossible. Weakness of and often total lack of self-confidence, definiteness of purpose, self-control, initiative, enthusiasm, ambition, thrift, and sound reasoning ability. Expecting poverty instead of demanding riches. Association with those who accept poverty instead of seeking the company of those who demand and receive riches. Money talks. Some will ask, why did you write a book about money? Why measure riches in dollars alone? Some will believe, and rightly so, that there are other forms of riches more desirable than money. Yes, there are riches which cannot be measured in terms of dollars, but there are millions of people who will say, give me all the money I need and I will find everything else I want. The major reason why I wrote this book on how to get money is the fact that the world has but lately passed through an experience that left millions of men and women paralyzed with the fear of poverty. Of course, he's referring to the 1929 crash. What this sort of fear does to one was well described by Westbrook Pegler in the New York World Telegram. These money is only clamshells or metal discs or scraps of paper, and there are treasures of the heart and soul which money cannot buy. But most people, being broke, are unable to keep this in mind and sustain their spirits. When a man is down and out on the street, unable to get any job at all, something happens to his spirit, which can be observed in the droop of his shoulders, the set of his hat, his walk, and his glaze. He cannot escape a feeling of inferiority among people with regular employment, even though he knows they are definitely not his equals in character, intelligence, or ability. These people, even his friends, feel, on the other hand, a sense of superiority and regard him perhaps unconsciously as a casualty. He may borrow for a time, but not enough to carry on in his accustomed way, and he cannot continue to borrow very long. But borrowing in itself, when a man is borrowing merely to live, is a depressing experience, and the money lacks the power of earned money to revive his spirits. Of course, none of this applies to bums or habitual ne'er-do-wells, but only to men of normal ambitions and self-respect. Women in the same predicament must be different. We somehow do not think of women at all in considering the down and outers. They are scarce in the breadlines, they are rarely seen begging on the streets, and they are not recognizable in crowds by the same plain signs which identify busted men. Of course, I do not mean the shuffling hags of the city street, who are the opposite number of the confirmed male bums. I mean reasonably young, decent, and intelligent women. There must be many of them, but their despair is not apparent. Maybe they kill themselves. That's an odd suggestion. When a man is down and out, he has time on his hands for brooding. He may travel miles to see a man about a job and discover that the job is filled, or there is one of those jobs with no base pay, but only a commission on the sale of something, some useless knick-knack which nobody would buy except out of pity. Turning that down, he finds himself back on the street with nowhere to go, but just anywhere. So he walks, and he gazes into store windows at luxuries which are not for him, and he feels inferior and gives way to people who stop to look with an active interest. He wanders into the railroad station or puts himself down in the library to ease his legs and soak up a little heat, but that isn't looking for a job, so he gets going again. He may not know it, but his aimlessness would give him away even if the very lines of his figure did not. He may be well dressed in the clothes left over from the days when he had a steady job, but the clothes cannot disguise the droop. Money makes the difference. Now, I guess here we'll try to do it both ways. She sees thousands of other people, bookkeepers or clerks or chemists or wagon hands, busy at their work, and envies them from the bottom of their soul. They have their independence, their self-respect, and man or womanhood, and he simply cannot convince himself that he or she is a good person too, although he or she may argue it out and arrive at a favorable verdict hour after hour. It is just money which makes this difference in the person. With a little money, they could be themselves again. Some employers take the most shocking advantage of people who are down and out. The agencies hang out little colored cards offering miserable wages to busted men or women, $12 a week, $15 a week. An $18 a week job is a plum, and anyone with $25 a week to offer does not hang the job out in front of an agency on a colored card. I have a want-ad clip from a local paper demanding a clerk, a good, clean penman, to take telephone orders for a sandwich shop from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for $8 a month. Not $8 a week, but $8 a month. The ad says also state religion. Can you imagine the brutal effrontery of anyone who demands a good, clean penman for 11 cents an hour, inquiring into the victim's religion? But that is what busted people are offered. The fear of criticism. Just how man originally came by this fear, no one can state definitely. But one thing is certain. He has it in a highly developed form. Some people believe this fear made its appearance about the time that politics became a profession. Others believe it can be traced to the age when women first began to concern themselves with styles in wearing apparel. This author, being neither a humorist nor a prophet, is inclined to attribute the basic fear of criticism to that part of a man's inherited nature which prompts him not only to take away his fellow man's goods and wares, but to justify his action by criticism of his fellow man's character. It's a well-known fact that a thief will criticize the man from whom he steals, that politicians seek office not by displaying their own virtues and qualifications, but by attempting to besmirch their opponents. The fear of criticism takes on many forms, the majority of which are petty and trivial. Bald-headed men, for example, are bald for no other reason than their fear of criticism. Heads become bald because of the tight-fitting bands of hats which cut off the circulation from the roots of the hair. Men wear hats not because they actually need them, but mainly because everyone is doing it. The individual falls into line and does likewise, lest some other individual criticize him. Women seldom have bald heads or even thin hair because they wear hats, which fit their heads loosely, the only purpose of the hats being adornment. But it must not be supposed that women are free from the fear of criticism. If any woman claims to be superior to a man with reference to this fear, ask her to walk down the street wearing a hat of the vintage of 1890. That's funny. The astute manufacturers of clothing have not been slow to capitalize this basic fear of criticism with which all mankind has been cursed. Every season the styles in many articles of wearing apparel change. Who establishes the styles? Certainly not the purchaser of the clothing, but the manufacturer. Why does he change the style so often? The answer is obvious. He changes the style so he can sell more clothes. For the same reason, the manufacturers of automobiles, with a few rare and very sensible exceptions, change styles of models every season. No man or woman wants to drive an automobile which is not of the latest style, although the older model may actually be the better car. We have been describing the manner in which people behave under the influence of fear of criticism as applied to the small and petty things of life. Let us now examine human behavior when this fear affects people in connection with the more important events of human relationship. Take, for example, practically any person who has reached the age of mental maturity from 35 to 48 years of age is a general average, and if you could read the secret thoughts of his mind, you would find a very decided disbelief in most of the fables taught by the majority of the dogmatists and theologians a few decades back. Not often, however, will you find a person who has the courage to openly state his or her belief on this subject. Most people will, if pressed far enough, tell a lie rather than admit that they do not believe the stories associated with that form of religion which held people in bondage prior to the age of scientific discovery and education. Why does the average person, even in this day of enlightenment, shy away from denying his belief in the fables which were the basis of most of the religions a few decades ago? The answer is because of the fear of criticism. Men and women have been burned at the stake for daring to express disbelief in ghosts. It is no wonder we have inherited a consciousness which makes us fear criticism. The time was, and not so far in the past, when criticism carried severe punishments. It still does in some countries. The fear of criticism robs man of his initiative, man and women of their initiative, destroys their power of imagination, limits their individuality, takes away their self-reliance, and does them damage in 100 other ways. Parents often do their children irreparable injury by criticizing them. The mother of one of my boyhood chums used to punish him with a switch almost daily, always completing the job with the statement, "You'll end in the penitentiary before you are 20. He was sent to a reformatory at the age of 17. Criticism is the one form of service of which everyone has too much. Everyone has a stock of it which is handed out gratis, whether called for or not. One's nearest relatives often are the worst offenders. It should be recognized as a crime. In reality, it is a crime of the worst nature. For any parent to build inferiority complexes in the mind of a child through unnecessary criticism, employers who understand human nature get the best there is in men and women not by criticism, but by constructive suggestion. Parents may accomplish the same results with their children. Criticism will plant fear in the human heart or resentment, but it will not build love or affection.
Cool. I think we can stop
Yeah.
there for today. Yeah, and then yeah. Thank you, Glenn, for reading. It's funny. Some of it made me giggle when I was hearing it. It's like,
yeah, particularly the hats thing. That's so funny, you know. Because you know, I've never worn a hat, but I've got normal male pattern baldness, you know, things like that. I've never worn a hat that's constricted there, you know. And my wife her hair thins a little bit, you know. I mean, you know, so it was sort of a strange, I mean, kind of an interesting observation that he put in there, you know. Probably not based on science, you know.
No, and it was funny. I remember the last time we read this, Tracy was on the Hangout. Tracy's if you're watching, you might not know who that is. He's a voice actor who sometimes comes into the Hangouts, and he's bald. And so and so when we read that part, he was like, "Oh, really?" But on a more relevant note, so he's talking about the fear of poverty, and then the fear of criticism, and also sort of going into the way that people, I think he's basically saying that people don't really address the fear of poverty they have because they don't really value money, that they're kind of content to live on very little, like that advert for 11 cents an hour. And you know, he says earlier on in the book, life will give you what you ask of it. So he's basically saying, you know, it's okay to ask for a lot, and but you can't have a fear of poverty at the same time.
No, because that's, you know, and the fact that, I mean, if you are in poverty, then your belief system says that, right? Your belief system says that. You know, that's what your belief is.
Yeah, exactly, because you can't have it comes back to the scientific yet again, the scientific, like it's not just a theory, is it? It's that if you look at quantum physics, it's because everything is connected, and if you have a fear about something, you know, like attracts like, so you're basically putting out into the universe this vibration of fear and lack, and so you receive that back. Yeah. I actually read an amazing little story yesterday, which I thought was such a great way to explain how to address this. Yeah. It was basically it was about habits and how we create new habits, and because fear is a habit, you know, when you have consistent fear. And by the way, I just realized that we had Zanny, or Star Dancer, pop into the Hangout while you were reading, Glenn. She dropped off, so if you're having trouble getting back in, then just let me know, Zanny. I'm not sure if your connection dropped. But yeah, great to see you, even if we didn't see you for very long. But basically, what I was going to share is that this metaphor was about how you can actually, if you have a bad habit of worrying about something, and you've been worrying about it for a long time, a lot of people will try and stop to worry about it. You know, they'll try and stop thinking about it, or feel bad because they're worrying about it. And what this story was it was about a wise old sage that takes a young boy into the jungle, and he takes him into the jungle to show him a lesson about life. And so the boy goes with him, and the sage makes the boy plant a seed in the ground, and so the boy does that, plants it, gets some nice soil, puts it down, and then they carry on walking, and they get to a tree, and the sage says to the young boy, "Okay, now I want you to try and pull out this tree out of the earth." And the boy thinks that's a bit strange, but he tries to do it, and he can't do it. So the sage says, "Okay, let's go to a different tree instead." And they go to this even bigger tree, and the boy tries desperately to pull the tree out of the ground, and is like yanking it and running around it, like trying to like grab the branches and like pull it down that way, chipping away at it, and he eventually realizes that there's no point. He'd need an axe, or he'd need some, he can't do that. And what the sage tells him is that a habit, when you've always done something, it's like a big tree because it's so embedded in the things you do on a daily basis that it's like it's got all these roots into your life and into you. And trying to like pull down the tree is going to be really difficult. It's extremely difficult. But it's a lot easier to plant a new seed and to start focusing on that seed and to start watering it, to start nurturing it as it grows, and it becomes a tree. And eventually, if you are taking care of it, it will grow as a bigger tree than that other tree. Yes. And the point of that is that, and we've said it a lot, but I just love this because it's a really great metaphor for the fact that it's a lot easier to start a new habit than it is to knock down an old one, and that's a great way to remember that. I just thought it was beautiful. So
yeah, it is a good story. I think great story, and it does illustrate the fact. And like you were saying, when you plant the new tree, then what you're doing basically is you're stealing some of the energy from the old tree. Right, from the old one that's been in there, right?
Good point.
And you're sending it over to the new tree and letting it become the power, the power that you want to operate in your life,
Yeah.
So, very cool.
Yeah, exactly. And another way, and I shared this last week, but I think it's so relevant to this. I'll bring it up again. It's a lot of people. It's like what you can do, and I've just never seen this before, or I have, but not in this way. I just think this is really effective. A way of doing that too, of planting a new seed, is writing out how you'll feel when you get one of the targets you're working towards. And whatever level you're at, we always have a target. If you don't grow, if you're not growing, you're just kind of stagnant, really. So what you can do, and I got this from a book we've been talking a lot about the past week or so, Why Quantum Physicists Do Not Fail. And basically, a lot of people, when they're focusing on something, they think about the thing they would like, and that actually often makes you feel that feeling of fear or worry because you don't have it yet. You focus on the absence of it, and what the book shares it's a lot more effective to actually focus on how you feel when you have it, right. and how and to actually write those things down on a piece of paper and look at it as much as you can, even if you don't have any reason to feel like that right now, or even if because I used to have these feelings I've written down when specific things would happen, and I'd get really happy. But it's true, I haven't deliberately tried to create those feelings outside of breakthroughs, And I did used to do something. Go on, Glenn.
Yeah, well, I love your list, Sandy. And the thing about that list is that you never cross anything off of your list, right? In other words, what's going to happen is that you're that list will hold up really good for almost anything any dream that you're going to create as you go. You're going to be building your dream every day, and and you're not going to be crossing off those things. Those things will just be expanding.
Exactly. Yeah, that's so true, Glenn. Because that's what I noticed is with each breakthrough that I've had since I started to really do personal development and become more conscious of how personal growth works. I always have the same feelings, it's like for me I love to dance, so I'd love when I get happy about something I have to just dance, I put on music and I literally, because I have so much energy.
Yeah, and it shows in your dance too, just in your movement.
Exactly. And for other people it might be something different, for some other people it might be you need to run around or you just can't stop smiling.
Or have a dessert or something,
Or have a dessert, exactly. And when you write the things down, it's amazing. You literally, I get a little burst of energy, and I've got the lists around my house. My housemate was came home from a trip, and I said, you know, there's little notes around the house now, so you'll have to like.
Well, yeah, that housemate can take advantage of those notes too, right? They're
Yeah,
already there. You know?
he was like, "Oh, cool! No, this is great." Because
Cool.
it's, you know, but I think it has to be specific to you. Think about the things you do when you're feeling really great and happy about something, and put them down there on the list. And that way, it's like you're creating a new energy instead of that fear energy or worry energy, which I think is almost like it's the same thing, really. Then you start to change your vibration. Like you said yesterday, Glenn, your tuning fork changes because frequently throughout the day, you're starting to have these energies instead of the energy of worry or fear.
Right.
So you're planting a new seeds, and you're watering them.
You're watering it, right, each day. You know,
Yeah, exactly. And I love the list idea. So just really grateful to Greg Kuhn, the author of that book, because I've never seen this before. Because what I was doing for a time was I had seen a brilliant hangout with a woman who does something very similar to me, and she was sharing how she'd had a big breakthrough, and what she had done was that she wrote down on a piece of paper the day that she had the breakthrough. She imagined it ahead of time, and so she wrote down what she did, the moment she realized, what she did afterwards, and she started to read that every day. So I was doing that for a time, but what I found was that after a while, the energy wasn't as strong anymore because I'd read it so many times, and it was so detailed that it almost, I think what is powerful about a list like this is that it's kind of it's really quick to connect to the energy, because as soon as I read, I feel like dancing. I just get an energy of what things make me feel like dancing. It's, you know, it's a bit more broad, and so I think, and it's less, it's more fun than reading a long piece of paper, you know, which I was doing once a day. And this is something you can look at, you know, like 50 times a day, which is gonna, through also suggestions, start to be a lot more effective, I believe.
And you know, you can add to your day as you go. You know, when you sit there for a few minutes with Chico and give him a little hug or pet him or something like that, what a wonderful thing that is, right? And the same thing with my doggies, you know.
Yeah.
In other words, we already have a nice life, right? We do. We have a good life.
It's
You know,
true.
we're already rich in many ways, you know.
Exactly.
And you know, so I think that you know, life is good, right? I mean, life is a good thing. It's meant to be lived to the fullest. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And when you start to become more grateful and have more gratitude, it sort of, it starts to kick out that fear energy, you know.
Yes.
I've always noticed when I'm feeling grateful about things, just because I'm making you know, not because something specific has happened, but just I'm focusing on what I'm grateful for, the energy of fear, it's not as strong anymore, because it's like the energy of fear is like this little this little thing, but gratitude is so much more powerful, I believe.
And then use the feedback from that little bit of fear that you do have to work on your beliefs, right?
Exactly.
To improve them.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's the other thing that we spoke about yesterday, is you can start to become grateful even for the fear, because it's telling you where you have these beliefs going on that might be working against you. Yeah. Cool. Okay, well, thank you so much for reading, Glenn.
Well, you're welcome.
And you guys watching, we have a poll going on in the group for a time that would work for more people, because I've really noticed, I've been looking at the stats a lot the past couple of days, and I've even noticed that when I post in the morning to say that the Hangout's about to start, most of the views come later in the day, after more of the world is awake. So I'm really getting the sense to make it a bit later. So I think that will happen shortly, but I would love to know what more people, you know, what time would be easier for you to come on to the Hangouts. And it doesn't mean that people have to come on every day. just whenever you can. I never meant it for, for people to feel obligated or have to come. But I think at a time when it would just be easier for you to pop on when you're here, then that's what I would like to know. So, cool. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I log into Skype today, Glenn.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And have a great day, everyone.
Okay, take care.
Have a great day, Glenn.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye-bye now.